My name is Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium and tarot card reader. I've always been curious about the supernatural, the paranormal, and psychic abilities, and I'm here to share my stories and interview folks who want to share their own stories with us. Let's get to it. Hey party people, this is the last episode for 2024 on Third Eyesight Podcast. And what better way than to repeat something I've done before, which is to talk about the top things I've learned as a psychic medium in the past year. This year has been it's been a huge year for personal growth for me. Huge year. And a lot happened. A lot did happen, I guess. Some big things happened in my life. I had a breakup in January from somebody who I thought was going to be a longtime partner. And I learned a lot through that relationship. And I'll share one or two things that I learned from that relationship that spills over into my psychic mediumship development and my development as a human being on this planet with a soul. A lot of things politically happening in 2024. And I'm, as you know from my second to last episode on the election in the U.S., you know that I'm very passionate about civil rights, human rights, and politics to an extent. And I think this year I just learned to cut through the BS in psychic world. So here we go. The top 3 things I learned in 2024 as a psychic medium. Number 1, you don't always have to be seeking the next best thing. I'm still learning this one. I think as a psychic medium who uses social media to try and get engagement and followers, it has been so easy for me to fall into the trap of feeling like I don't have enough followers, feeling like I don't get the attention my content deserves as a return for the effort I put into the content I make. That I don't get the amount of podcast downloads that I wish other podcasts, that I wish I could, that other podcasts do get. Comparing myself a lot and when it comes to numbers and quantities. And I think that I'm slowly, glacially learning that I need to let my passion, I just told this to a client the other day, I need to let passion drive the work that I do, to let passion drive the creativity, the creative work I do for social media, for the podcast. And I really do enjoy doing these things. I enjoy recording those videos for social media. I enjoy recording this episode and other episodes and talking to people about their experiences and what they have to contribute to the topic of psychic mediumship, other psychic abilities, and the supernatural. I love it. I really enjoy it. And I'm letting my obsession with the numbers and the engagement, the audience, I'm letting that dictate how I'm enjoying the process. And I really do believe that when you enjoy something wholeheartedly, success will come in the way that it needs to, or that it will. It may not be money, may not be fame, it could just be fulfillment. And I've been feeling very fulfilled this year. 2024 was a year in which many things in my life stayed the same. My job, my 9-to-5 job, the amount of bookings I get per month for mediumship and tarot cards, the podcast downloads, they've increased a little bit, not exponentially, but on average they've increased just a little bit. Most things stayed the same, but something else changed. I feel more fulfilled because I'm more content with what I do have. I feel grateful for what is, and not trying to chase the next best thing to then feel grateful, to then feel happy. I was telling somebody yesterday, that's something I tell myself now a lot, is I have a roof over my head. I have food I can eat this week. I paid my rent. I will not starve. And I have people whom I love, who I know love me back. And those things are luxuries in and of themselves. And starting from that place of gratitude, being grateful for what I have, that I have everything that I need for the most part to survive. No, actually, I have everything I need to survive, period. And then the love of other people, it's a bounty. And I have a lot to be grateful for. And starting from that place has helped me have a better head on my shoulders when I face the challenges, when I face doubts, because I have everything I really need. And it's not me bragging about the things I have. I'm just trying to say that the things that most people take for granted that seem very simple, I consider luxuries. And I'm starting from a place of acknowledging the privilege and those luxuries that I have. I don't always have to chase the next best shiny thing because I have everything I need right now. That's the number one thing I've learned. And it's not the top thing. This is not in any ranking order, but that is the first thing I'll share with you that I've learned this year in 2024. The second thing I shared, love is an action word. It's not just a feeling. Put in another way, in the context of a romantic relationship, in a relationship, maybe not even romantic, just in any deep human connection, love is not enough. There has to be effort. The feeling of love is not enough. There has to be love in action. And I learned that through the relationship I had in 2023 into very, very early, literally the first 2 weeks of 2024. I learned that I have this habit of holding on to things because I'm afraid of letting go of them. I'm afraid of what it will mean, what it will say about me or mean about the topic of love for me, what it will say about love in my life if I let go of somebody, if I let go of that thing, even though it's not really working. And that relationship really, oh my gosh, it taught me so much. I've changed so much this year in terms of my confidence, my self-esteem, the amount of time I'm not going to waste in my life with just people in general or situations in general. It taught me that love cannot just live as just a word to say or feeling to feel. It has to be shown, at least this is just my opinion, it has to be shown in action. It has to be demonstrated. And that goes not just for other people being that way towards me. That also goes for me and how I live my life and show up in relationships with people and in connections with people. Love is an action word. And something that is said often these days on social media, a buzzword is, boundaries. Set boundaries. Learning how to set boundaries. Now that the word narcissism and narcissist, those two words are very buzzy these days, people are also talking in the same breath about setting boundaries of people who may be narcissistic or otherwise. And I think one of the highest forms of love you can show to yourself is setting boundaries with people, not making enemies out of them, not trashing them, not reading them up and down and telling them what's bad about them, but just setting boundaries. You can love somebody and set a boundary with them. That's often what we need. We have these loving relationships with family members and friends, and we don't want to cut them out, but we have to set a boundary. There has to be a meeting in the middle. And so love is an action word, not just in the way we show it to other people, but in the way we show it to ourselves. That's number 2. Number 3 thing, the third thing I've learned this year, and you're going to be sick of me saying it over and over again, but I'm not going to stop saying it because it has truly been, it's created huge changes in my life. Huge this year. It's at the core of Me learning, number one, you don't always have to seek the next best thing. And number two, love is an action word, not just a feeling. It's at the core of why I feel more confident than I did 12 months ago. It's at the core of how I'm setting boundaries with people in the way that I feel like I need to. And I'm not perfect at it. Sometimes I fail miserably at setting boundaries with people still, but I'm still learning. I'm only human. And that's, get ready for it. And you've never heard Juan say this before, inner child healing work. In 2023, I did mentorship with Daisy at the Metaphysical Healing Center and Crystal Shop, Earth Angel Crystal, here in New York City. And she told me about inner child work, and I didn't understand what inner child work had to do with being a medium at all. My therapist had talked about inner child for a very long time. Before that, for like 2 years before that. And when Daisy assigned me some reflection related to inner child work, I was resistant, but I did it. And I started having little realizations. Then I started talking about those with my therapist. And then it was like back and forth, almost like watching tennis between my therapist and my mediumship mentor. It's like, oh, okay, there's this ball in the middle and it's inner child work, and they're both bouncing them off of each other without knowing, because they don't know each other. Really, they don't really know each other. But I'm watching this game of tennis and I'm following the ball, and I'm saying to myself, oh, there's a connection here. This isn't just a mediumship thing. It's not just a psychological thing. It's both. And at a soul level, this is important work for me. I need to keep following this ball with my eyes and see where it goes. And getting in touch with my younger self, the child who felt like he wasn't good enough because he acted too gay, the child who felt ugly because his teeth weren't perfect, because he was mixed race and Chinese looking, and the kids would make fun of him for looking Chinese. And I am Chinese, part Chinese. The teenager who felt very scared to be himself, like he was doomed because he was going to go to hell anyways, no matter what he did, because he's gay, because he likes boys. The teenager who had a lot of angst and didn't feel good in his body and felt very ugly and just wanted to be like the cute boys who got all the girls. The cute boys who had nice bodies didn't have to worry about being called ugly or less pretty than. And even into the college student who had his first relationship and wanted so much out of that relationship, expected so much, and that was so unfair to that partner and also to himself. Going through these different stages in my head and just connecting with those different versions of Juan and looking back and just saying, wow, you just needed someone to tell you that you were good enough, that no one has to make you feel good enough. You just had to be reminded that you already are good enough. You're a child of God. You're part of God. You are a teenager. You're going through an awkward stage. Everyone in their teenage years looks awkward. Now I look back at yearbooks, I'm like, oh my God, I thought that kid was so cute when I was that age. And I'm like, oh my goodness, he was pimply just like I was. Or he had whatever it is. We all went through awkward phases, right? And you're not excluded from that. And nobody else was. Some people were lucky, but you were a teenager. And as many of you know, I've struggled with body image dysmorphia most of my life. And for those who are not familiar, it's this experience in which you look at the mirror, you look at yourself, and you don't like what you see, and you see things about your body that really aren't, you don't see your body through a very accurate lens. And when people give you compliments and they mean them, you don't believe them, or you just kind of turn them on their head and say, well, they're saying that because they're just being nice, but I really look this way. And it's very hard to get to a point where you start accepting compliments. And doing the inner child healing work helped me to realize that a lot of those self-deprecating thoughts, a lot of those self-doubts that I have, a lot of those trashing myself, a lot of that trashing myself for what I look like, for what I sound like, for the way I walk, for not being, even in my adult years, like for not being a perfect gay man, because then I was out of the closet, but then I felt like, oh, I don't look like the guys in porn or in model ads and clothing ads, and I don't look like the gay guys that walk down in the pride parade. All those things I learned from somewhere else. And just because something else or someone else tells me something doesn't make it true, unless I investigate further and find it to be true. But what gets very tricky with stereotypes and with expectations in a culture is sometimes there's more than just a few of us who believe a lie, who believe that we have to look a certain way to be a perfect gay man, to believe that we have to be a certain type of skin color to be acceptable enough so that people stop asking you, where are you from? I remember one time, side note, I might have shared this on the podcast a long time ago, but I was showing my dating profile to a colleague at work who I'd become friendly with. And there's this picture that I have. It's no longer on my dating profile, but I really love this photo of myself. It's a really wonderful photo. I look very happy. I look great. And when she came across that photo, I was letting her judge my profile. Tell me what I should do or whatever. She looks at that photo. She says, oh, this photo makes you look Asian. And there's two things happening here. Number one, what's so bad about looking Asian? Number two, and I told her this, well, I am Asian. And for those of you who are listening who don't know, I am a Latino. I identify as a Latino, but I'm quite a mixture. My dad is half Chinese, half Peruvian, or if not half Chinese, he's 35% Chinese. You look at a picture of my grandma, and you would swear she would start speaking Mandarin. She is a Chinese woman. She was of mixed race as well, but her family was Chinese Peruvian. But the Chinese was very dominant. So I just to make it easy, I call myself quarter Chinese, quarter Peruvian, quarter Italian, quarter Scottish. Between my two parents, those are the four dominant heritages and races. And I'm part Chinese. And this colleague of mine did not know that. And it became very awkward. And that was the end of that conversation. I grew up with kids stretching their eyes at me in kindergarten and first grade, calling me Chinese boy. And it hurt because I knew as a small kid, I knew I was part Chinese. But I just felt like, okay, there's something bad or ugly about me being this way. And I would go home crying quite often about it to my mom. And my mom especially was really she was having a hard time seeing me that way. And it's one of the reasons they switched my school. Among other issues that were happening, my grades weren't good. And so these things that we hear as children, they affect us. And I know I sound very cliche because psychology talks about childhood and, what happened in your childhood? What were your parents like? It's very cliche, but it's true. It's true. The environment of adults and other children we grow up with have such a big impact on us. And if we don't have someone there to tell us why the things we're hearing in these interpersonal relationships, why they are not true or not helpful, it's challenging but doable. I'm a case in point. It's challenging to work through them. It's challenging. And that's why I so swear by inner child healing work. because it has helped me realize every single thing I just told you in the last 4 to 5 minutes. It's helped me to understand that there is a little Juan in there that just wants to be loved and just feels scared sometimes and needs an adult in the room to hold his hand and not just say, oh, don't feel sad or don't be angry. To tell the little Juan, I see you're angry. It's okay. It's okay to be angry. What they did wasn't cool, but it's going to be okay because it doesn't have to affect us this way. Or it's okay to be sad. Just be sad. Cry. Let's cry. Instead of, oh, don't feel sad. Don't do that. Oh, don't put on a smile. Little Juan just needed someone to understand him. And there's no comment on any adults in my life because every adult who raises us has their inner child to get in touch with as well. Had their inner child to get in touch with. And I really believe, as I said on my election podcast episode 2 weeks ago, that or was it 3 weeks ago? Maybe 3 weeks ago. Sorry. I just had an intrusive thought. If we all on this planet did inner child healing work, I think the world would be a less chaotic place. I think there would be less conflict. We're all functioning, not all of us, but so many of us on this planet are functioning from a place of, I need to protect my land. I need to protect my materialistic items. I need to protect my pride. When really some of those things matter a lot and we have to defend our property. But at what cost? And inner child healing work, I think, can show us that all the ways we try to protect things from a place of coming at protection from a place of fear is somehow traced back to our child. And it's something that we can work through. And I think the world would be a better place if we understood that. But that's just my opinion. I ain't no guru. I'm no prophet either. That's just my opinion. And you can call me the evangelist of inner child healing work. I'll proudly take that title because it's like when someone has found Jesus. Like, I got to tell everyone about Jesus now because I feel Jesus now and he told me this and I can't. I feel like that about inner child healing work. A born again inner child healing evangelist. I just cannot swear more by it. And I think that I would like to have a few people on the podcast who specifically work on inner child healing. Wish I could have my therapist on. I wish I could bring him on, but that would be kind of weird. So we're not going to do that. But those are the 3 things I learned in 2024. I'll recap them right now. Number 1, you don't always have to seek the next best thing. Number 2, love is not just a feeling, it's also an action word. Number 3, inner child healing work. I don't know why I just sang that. That was really awkward. Inner child healing work. And with that, as they say on those trending TikTok reels, and with that, the 2024 season comes to a close. But really, though, it comes to a close, and I am just so grateful I've had another calendar year, because we did celebrate 3 years of Third Eyesight in October 2024. That was a 3rd year anniversary. But now we're closing out a calendar year, and it's another one for the books. And I'm so grateful that people still listen to this podcast and that new folks are listening to the podcast. And I want to say just a quick message for people who... Instagram threads, I put up a call to action for people who want to be on this podcast, who work with psychic abilities, mediumship, the supernatural, what was the other thing? Oh, and self-empowerment, I think. And the requirement is be ethical, no BS. That's what I put in my Instagram thread post. And it's gotten like over 100 comments. There's so many people who've submitted themselves. And if you're listening to this and you've submitted yourself, please know that I either have or definitely will see it. I cannot guarantee you're going to be chosen to be on the podcast in 2025. I'll do my best. And please understand that I'm looking for specific types of stories and people that fit this podcast. And it's the harsh reality of having a podcast. It's just to book people that really speak to the mission of the podcast. And not everyone's going to fit the bill. Not everyone's going to fit the bill. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth. And I'm just so grateful that there's so many podcasts like mine out there, because there's some way that anybody can share their story. So if you've submitted yourself, thank you so much for your interest and for being so excited to be on the podcast. I will let you know by February 2025 if you've been chosen to be on the podcast. I'm going to vet every single person and just go through the list. And in the interest of time, I know I won't be able to. I mean, that's 100 people. 100 people is more than 2 years, maybe 2 years or more of podcast episodes just all on their own. So I'm going to have to be very strategic in how I choose the people I feature on the podcast. But for 2025, as I mentioned in the last episode, I really want to get to the bottom of being human and being a psychic medium. Being human and being a spiritual practitioner. Not taking the human element out of it, but having it be very much a part of the conversation. Because at the end of the day, we are human beings with flaws, with emotions, with upsets, with joys and challenges. And I want that to be very much a part of the mediumship experience for me, not ignoring my human side, but acknowledging it, welcoming it in. And I guess the last thing I'll say is the next episode of Third Eyesight will be in mid-January. I'm taking this hiatus. I take a break so that I can enjoy the holiday season with my family and loved ones. And because it's a lot to do a podcast sometimes. I enjoy it a lot. It doesn't feel like work, but it does take energy out of me. And I think I do like to have a break every year in December. So by mid-January, we will be back. And I'm excited for some interviews I already have lined up for the first few months of 2025 and some really interesting solo episodes, interesting topics that you'll hear. I wish you nothing but a beautiful holiday season if you celebrate. And if it's not an easy holiday season, please give yourself some extra love. Be gentle with yourself. You're not alone. Reach out to someone in your community or someone in your social circle. And just know that you're not alone in your struggle. And for those who are celebrating joys this holiday season, bask in the joys. There's so much to, if we just sit and listen to our hearts and take a moment to think of the things that we are grateful for, there's so much in the simplicity of life that we can draw joy from. It doesn't mean we ignore the problems we face. Doesn't mean that we ignore the struggles we have. It's just finding the light in that darkness, finding the stars in the night sky. I heard that somewhere in a movie, I think, or a TV show recently, where they were talking about, it was a video game, talking about it may feel like you're in the darkness, but in the darkness is where you see the lights, the shimmering lights. And it may feel like cloudy skies sometimes, but those stars are still there. And as cheesy as it sounds, keep looking for those stars in the night sky. You won't regret finding them. And I'll leave you with that for the end of 2024's season. I love you all. God bless you all. Happy holidays, and see you in 2025. If you have a question or topic you want me to cover on Third Eyesight, head to my website, juanfranciscospirit.com/contact, and send a message my way. If you really enjoyed this episode, leave a review wherever you listen. I'd really appreciate it.